You know, I feel like Victor Borge. For those of you who are over 100 years old, know who that is. And the reason is because I really wish I had my motorcycle here. And when I found out that I was going to be with Karen tonight, I was really excited about that. And I looked back in my drawer and I found my Rage Against that white and red Rage Against the Media button. And I said, man, I got to bring this with me. And I didn't want to forget, so I took it out and put it in the motorcycle. And then this afternoon I thought, you know, I'm going to be in this beautiful church with these nice people. And, you know, maybe I should wear a nice suit and, you know, honor the occasion and everything. And because I'm wearing the suit, I brought the car. So, you know, that's where we are. So, anyway, yeah, thank you. It's the way you tell it. So anyway, we are in a beautiful church and a house of worship here. And I'm sure that all of you will agree that suicide is a sin, right? We're in a church, right? Everybody pretty much agree that it's a sin. And even if you don't think of it in a theistic way, just as a decent human being, it's a horrible thing. And we have a lot of servicemen and civilians committing suicide. And it's really terrible. And last summer, I went to a Gary Sinise concert. Now, Gary Sinise was Lieutenant Dan in Forrest Gump, right? And those of you who don't know this guy, he's an actor who donates millions of dollars to veterans, especially disabled veterans. And he has a band called the Lieutenant Dan Band, in which he plays the bass sometimes. They play all the hits, and they do these shows, and they donate all the money to the service people. So I and 10,000 other people went through the metal detector, and we went in this giant park up in Ventura County to see the Lieutenant Dan Band. And the band was introduced by a 4-star Air Force general named Robin Rand. Now, most of these generals are two-bit politicians, but this guy is the commandant of a B-2 bomber attack group. So he's the real deal. He's a military man, and he introduced the band. And I don't know why this happened, but when he was done, he came down into the audience, this gigantic audience that looked like Woodstock, and he stood right next to me. And I said, aren't you the general that just introduced the band? And he said, yes, sir, I am. And I said, well, I feel like I should stand at attention. And he said, oh, you respect rank. You know, did you serve? And I said, no, I had 2 fathers who were both, you know, combat veterans and in 2 different conflicts. And he was really impressed by that. My natural father served in Korea, was a prisoner of war twice, 3-time Purple Heart winner. He did strategic demolition, and those guys don't live long. So after that, my mom married Jim Van Natta, who was a submarine combat veteran in World War II in the Sea of Japan. And I was brought up in New Jersey, you know, where Valley Forge is. And Jim Van Natta was an oil company executive later in life. So we went to Manassas and Valley Forge and Gettysburg. I mean, this guy was all military. So I told General Robin Rand that I was really unhappy about veteran suicide. And he said, well, so am I. And I said, well, I have a unique idea on how to combat that. And he said, sir, you have my undivided attention. Now, realize there's a band playing. There's thousands of people dancing. You know, we're hearing all the hits. Gary Sinise is up there. And he had a nice Fender Precision bass, which I was happy to see, because usually he has this like $5,000 fancy thing. But anyway, he said, well, tell me about it. And I said, well, the problem is that civilians also, but servicemen come home from deployment and their significant other, whether it's a husband, wife, boyfriend, or girlfriend, or whatever, have taken their child to another state, gone to a liberal judge and said, I don't want that psycho raising my child. He killed people. He's a Marine or whatever. And the judge says, I don't blame you, lady. Here's a restraining order for 10 years. You'll never get him. You know, he'll never. And then now this guy or woman, because this happens to both, they can't see their children. And they start a court battle, and they can't possibly win the court battle for reasons that I won't go into. And their parents get involved, the grandparents, that is. And they start to remortgage their house and, you know, gather money to pay lawyers. And these lawyers They can't help these people. It's a stacked deck. And it gets more and more depressing, more and more desperate, more and more hopeless. And in a really lot of cases, these people kill themselves. Now, the general, he expanded on this. He said, well, Fred, you don't even understand another problem. We have a readiness problem in the military. He says, I have guys landing an F-18 on an aircraft carrier. They haven't seen their kids, and they're out of their mind, and they're not fully alert, and it's been a big problem throughout the entire service and all the branches. I was glad to hear that he added to that, but he said, but Fred, what do we do about it? What's the solution, right? And the band is still playing, you know? And I said, well, here's what it is. These courts are all county courts, and that's the jurisdiction. If you have a family law problem, it's in your county. And if the proposition is this: if you haven't seen your child for 1 full year through no fault of your own, not because you're a drug addict that beats kids, but if you're a clean mom or dad, you haven't seen your child for 1 full year because of court malfeasance, you will get federal amnesty from your family court ruling. Now, there's two whole different avenues of why this is good. Now, when I told the general you're going to have federal amnesty from your local family court ruling, he went, my God, that's a revelation. And he grabbed me and he hugged me right at this, in the event. And he said, well, tell me more about this idea. So I said, well, the first thing is this. When you haven't seen your child and you're fighting in court, you have a financial nightmare and an emotional nightmare, and it gets worse and more desperate and worse. If after 1 year that stops and you're able to use your Social Security number again without being garnished and get a job and buy a house, and you know, they'll take your home, they'll take your car if you owe money to the court. If that's nullified, now you have a stable life and you can go forward and you can have another family and you can move forward and get a job and have a decent life like all the rest of us assume that we all can have. A great many of us can't, and that's why we kill ourselves. So I said, that's the first thing, but that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is if the parent and the court know that the money is going to stop after 1 year, they're going to handle themselves completely different. The court is never going to make that ruling. The spouse is never going to make that ruling. You know, a lot of fathers aren't even really the father. You know, they've been hoodwinked into this, and the genetic test is no longer good, and whatever it may be. If people find out that there's no money in this anymore, they're going to unify the families, and we won't have the alienation to begin with. Now, that's the big one. Either unification from the beginning or reunification. Now, when I said there's two things, there's really three things, and the most important thing is the one that everybody glosses over, and that is this. The worst victim of all this is the alienated children. These kids grow up thinking that their mom is bad or their father is bad. They haven't seen their grandchildren. They don't know their heritage. They're being sequestered in another state, forbidden to ever contact anybody. And their self-esteem goes way down. They know that there's something wrong with them. And they end up committing suicide. They end up going transgender or whatever it may be, or some kind of, or rebellious, or they turn to drugs or prostitution or whatever at a young age. It's really, really bad. So amnesty for alienated American parents, it's amnesty for alienated American. This is not for aliens. You know, you say the word alien and everybody, ugh. Amnesty for alienated American parents is the name of the thing. Now, we started this on January 1st of this year, because even though I met Robin Rand in the summer, it took that long a time. You know, he was very strict with me. He said, look, you got the idea. He said, make a really good name for this and open up a company, a nonprofit organization, and start a website so that people can see this and it's real. And then go to the bank and open up an account for donations so that it's real. And he said, don't think that you're going to do anything right away. This is a long-term project, right? And then I was introduced to a Navy man. Now this is really great. This Navy guy was a strategist. And he said to me, "You, Fred, are nobody." He said, "I hope you understand that. You're going to be the national spokesman for this thing, but you are not going to win this battle. What you are going to do is gather thousands of people that agree with this idea." Now, so far out in the audience, how many of you think this sounds like a good idea to begin with? It's a pretty good idea? Everybody who thinks this is a good idea, I want you to give me your name, your email, what your occupation is, and what state you live in. Okay, so I'm going to hand this out, and you can pass it around. So, John, if you want to help me with that, maybe, if you will. Now, here's where the story really starts to get good. The strategist said, "Remember, you're nobody." He goes, "You have to adopt that from the beginning because you are not going to win this battle. You don't have the power," right? I like to think that I'm going to do this, right? But this is the strategy. I get 1,000 people just like you to sign on to this thing so that it grows and grows and grows. There's a really lot of parental alienation psychiatrists in this country. After this thing starts to grow more and more, it will become more impressive. On the website, we started last January, and right up until March 15, we gathered 100 people who are real, not pirated lists or bought lists or anything like that. These are real people who signed a thing just like you did or signed up on the website. And we were doing really good at growing it. But then we were told about the Wuhan flu. And I said, well, I'll stay home for a couple weeks and we'll keep the momentum going. And a couple weeks turned into 4 weeks. And second month came in, and then it was the middle of summer, and 4th of July came and went, and now here we are. So in the first 10 weeks of this, I gathered 100 people. 2 of them are actually psychiatrists. So I felt real good about that. And I made appointments with all kind of congressmen and everybody. I had all these appointments set up, lots of clergymen. All those things were canceled. The door was slammed on the project. But I'm going to get back to the strategy so you know what we're going to do. As the psychiatrists start to join, I'm a civilian and I have access to civilian psychiatrists. I do not have access to the military psychiatrists, but the civilian psychiatrists do. And they will go to the military psychiatrists and say, this is something that's good for the troops. Now, in the military, the psychiatrists and the generals are always having a power struggle. The psychiatrists want to tell these guys what to do, and they can, because when it's psychiatric and it's for the troops, for their mental stability and their emotional stability, the psychiatrist can direct the general. So the psychiatrists who want to have power and shove these guys around are going to, this is what the Navy man told me. He said, these psychiatrists are going to tell the generals, you have to lobby the legislature for legislation about this. It's for the troops. This is the avenue that we're going to use. In the meantime, I'll be speaking, and I'll be speaking to these legislators. I mean, if we get Devin Nunes or Matt Getz or something in on this, we got a good voice, right? Right? We already got one real good guy. So anyway, the funny part of it is my own guy, Mike Gibson, the appointment was for March 16th. Hello, Mr. Sottile? Yeah, he's not going to be there tomorrow. Anyway, when the legislature starts to hear this from the military, they're going to begin to write the legislation. Once they write the legislation and they think it's a good idea because it's for the troops, they'll write the legislation, banter it around for a year or two the way they do, and that is the path to the president's desk. That's how we get this thing done. So with that strategy and with the altruistic nature and the nonpartisan nature of this, I think we really can fight suicide and parental alienation. We keep family together, as Karen said, very, very important, right? A unified family. You know, the left has to break down the church because it's a stronghold of faith. Has to break down the family because it's a stronghold of faith. Even a farm is bad because a farm is self-sustaining. If a farmer has a well, and ammunition and guns, you can't come there, right? You can't shove that guy around. He's self-sustaining. They have to make everybody dependent on the government and the government only. The government's your religion, it's your father, it's your mother, it's your lover, it's your child care, it's everything. The government, that monolithic, horrible thing, is what they're going for. Now, I was really proud to be able to wrap this up quickly because I didn't have a time constraint. But the whole group here seemed to be really concerned about how we change the election process and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to make a shameless plug. And that is this. This is the 7th book I've written. I know you folks don't really know me, most of you, but I'm a big student of philosophy and psychology and game theory. And I've been thinking about this for a long time. One of the problems we have is getting people that are in office out of office. I'm sure you all have a favorite list, right? Karen Bass, Adam Schiff, whoever it may be. Mad Max, right. This book is about a man in Oregon who tries a completely different and new system to get incumbents out. I cannot help anyone win an election, but I can help get somebody who's in out. So, John, if you want to be a congressman and you want to run against, who's your congressman?
Linda Sanchez.
Okay. If you want to get Linda Sanchez out, I can't help you, but I can get her out. And then if you're the last man standing, God bless you. So this is a shameless plug. I wasn't going to include this because this is really a talk about AFAAP and parental alienation, and I realized, but I got so wound up with Karen's speech and your enthusiasm, I said, I just have to do this, so shame on me. But anyway, this takes serious reading and study. I mean, this is a whole new thing that's never been tried before. It's not a bumper sticker. It's not something that, I talked to one group and I said, I know how to get an incumbent out. And the guy said, well, how do you do it? And I said, well, you have to read the book. He goes, you don't know how to do it. So, it's pretty serious. But anyway, thank you all for your attention. I want you all to put your name, your email. You got to do really nice penmanship because I'm not asking for your phone number. So if your penmanship fails and I can't get the email, the reason I want you to have your email is, as you know, I'm building the list of supporters, but every 2 or 3 weeks or so, I will send you a report on how the AFAAP is developing. We're not sleeping. The election is over now. A month ago, I couldn't talk to anybody. It was election, and I couldn't get an appointment or anything like that. And, Gloria, I wanted to be here months ago. The book wasn't ready then, But now that the election is over and people want to do political activism, the AFAAP is really important. We're fighting suicide. And, thank you. And this is important, too, because it is a unique and revolutionary idea on how to change the election process and how to get these people that are, some of these people in Mark Reed's election, he lost 70-30, So, fortunately, young Kim is neck and neck, right? She's 50-50 with the incumbent, so there's a prayer there. But some of these other folks, Burton Brink, fantastic candidate, lost 70-30 to Ed Chow, and that's shouldn't have happened. So if we learn this method and we start now, we have 2 years to make this happen, and I really think we can. And I'm going to build the AFAAP as quickly as I can. And folks, I'm a full-time activist. This is all I do. I'm at home writing books, writing songs, and activism. So I really don't take questions. So what do you want to say? Right, well, I want you to get me an appointment with that guy so that I can... Oh, I'm sorry. She says, obviously the AFAAP needs to have, the Veterans Administration need to know about this. And any of you, and that, you know, I'm glad you did say that. What happens when I talk to groups like this is people tell me what I should do. You know what you should do, Fred? You should call Mark Levin. That's the guy. Get on the Mark Levin show. That's what you should do. Now, I want to do that, but if that's your idea, get me an appointment there. If you think I should talk to somebody, get me an appointment. If you want me to talk to your pastor, get me the appointment. If you want me to talk to somebody, a school teacher or whatever, make the appointment. I will go. You know, it's a shame that it's sundown at 4:30 in the afternoon now, but I will still go. So anyway, thank you all very much for your attention, and I really am going to move forward with these projects. And thank you, Gloria, for having me, giving me the venue.
Thank you so much.